You are watching the Fayetteville Government Channel. Up next, full coverage of the latest meeting of the Fayetteville Council of Neighborhoods. The Council of Neighborhoods is composed of citizen volunteers and meets on the last Thursday of each month. The Council of Neighborhoods provides a forum for neighborhood associations to share information, concerns, and ideas, and provides a mechanism to communicate with elected officials and governmental agencies. And now, the Fayetteville Council of Neighborhoods.
We'd like to welcome you to the meeting tonight. It's January 26, 2012 of the Fayetteville Council of Neighborhoods. We have a speaker guest tonight who is Craig Stout from the Fayetteville Police Department. And has everyone got an agenda? Okay. And if we'll just start on my left and go around and introduce ourselves. You might mention what neighborhood you're from if you're with a neighborhood association.
I'm Julie McQuaid, Community Outreach Coordinator for the city.
And Julie, what neighborhood do you live in, by the way?
Wilson Park.
I am Mike Eric. I live in the Red Arrow Edition south of town. I live very close to Baum Stadium.
Over on Custer Drive, right?
Custer Lane, yeah.
I'm Richard Russell, the chair, and I also am from Jennings Plus neighborhood.
I'm Aubrey Shepherd from the Town Branch neighborhood. I live on South Duncan Avenue.
I'm Craig Crocker for the overrepresented Jennings Plus neighborhood.
Craig Stout with the Fayetteville Police Department, and unfortunately I don't live in the city.
Oh my goodness, we're sorry. I hope we get some affordable housing so you can move to town.
Joel Walsh, I'm with the Times newspaper. I live on Duncan Avenue. I'm not sure what neighborhood that is.
Which on Duncan?
Northview.
Northview?
North of you.
Okay, but it's all the way up on the other side of MLK.
Up by the high school.
It's not incorporated, so you could
Claim whatever.
claim whatever you want to call it, I think. Is there a neighborhood?
I think Michael Lawley was actually talking about forming one in that general area, so.
He's over by me for sure.
Yeah.
Get with him. Good.
Is the Times interested in a specific thing tonight?
I was here to hear the presentation about home days.
So that's our next agenda item. I suppose we're called to order. I'll have to do this a little better next time. Calling everyone to order. So I was reading, in recent months, I've noticed the term home invasion in the press. And I wasn't quite clear on what that is. I mean, I know what it is, but it just jumped out to me as a term. And so I got to thinking that maybe we should just get some clear information from the police department, the people who know best. They probably know about many, many more than we hear about in the press. So, Craig, would you mind giving us a rundown and just
I
maybe
think
later we could ask a question.
Right, and I think I probably need to articulate what we use as the term home invasion. You know, that can be, you know, a very broad term. Whenever we use a term home invasion, that is a very specific term. We usually use it as a home invasion robbery, which is someone who is armed or use threats of force enters your home while you are there. Now, obviously, you could break it down to what we consider a burglary, which is, you know, someone breaks into your home when you're not there. But in this instance, that's what we refer to as someone who is an armed intruder, breaks into your residence, and with threat of force or display of a weapon, either is demanding something from you, money, whatever the case may be.
Would a crowbar, for instance?
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. Any kind of threat of force. It doesn't always have to be a handgun. There have been some where there have not been any weapons displayed, but you know, the use of force is there where someone is either pushed down, overpowered, whatever the case may be. And that's really what we're talking about. We have seen, it seems like these are on the rise a little bit. It's not that, it's something that, you know, whenever I first started 18 years ago, it's not a very common occurrence, but it seems like it is getting a little bit more and more regular. Now, the one thing that I can say with a certain amount of certainty, at least within the city limits of Fayetteville, now there have been some recent instances just outside of our city limits that kind of break this trend, but over the past 5 years, which it seems we seems to have noticed our major spike in these type robberies. During that 5 years, through the course of our investigations, we have found that 100% of these, at least in the city limits, have been drug related. With that being said, these people were either, you know, the suspects knew that there was some type of drug activity, whether people were selling drugs out of their home or they had money from drugs. And you know, again, I was really trying to get a grasp on these numbers. I couldn't quite come up with a solid number, but I know at least over the past 3 years we've had over 20 of these. But again, every one of these we have determined to be drug related. Now that's not to say that it couldn't happen to just a random person. So, you know, with the ones that we can at least speak to recently, most of those, again, have been drug related. It seemed, from what I was able to determine, at least most of them, all of them had been over marijuana, with the exception of one that I was able to find that had cocaine. With that, at least I would like to put some citizens at ease. And if you don't do bad things won't happen to you. Now, not to say that it couldn't, but just when you look at the numbers, what we have initially, that's what we're looking at. The thing that I think that I would probably stress too is, unfortunately, these have gone across. I mean, they're not just confined to one section of the city. They're not even confined to the city. The most recent one happened just outside the city limits in Washington County. We have a little bit of residual information, but you know, the thing that I would probably at least try to put the citizens' minds at ease is none of these have ever truly seemed to be random. They have always been targeted specifically for some reason.
Not random, but not necessarily specific to any part of town.
Right, exactly. For the fact that, I mean, you know, there was one that recently happened on Spring Street. We've had them just, you know, throughout the city and even out into the Washington County's jurisdiction. Other cities have seen those as well. So, at least on ours, I mean, there is no, you know, seems to be any boundaries. It can happen literally to any neighborhood. The one thing that I would probably stress, though, is to make sure that we're vigilant. Unfortunately, what we have seen, and when I say that, is just be aware of surroundings, whether it's the residents or even neighbors. In one of the most recent home invasions that we had, there was a witness who had seen some people lurking around prior to the event happening, but we did not find this information out until after it had already occurred and we're already there on scene. And not to say that it could have been prevented, but a phone call may have prevented it. Far too often we see situations where people may have the misconception that, well, I don't want to bother the police. You know, we're more than happy to come out. Again, I would rather come out 100 times on a false alarm than one real thing. Yes, sir.
Question.
You bet.
Do you dial the regular police number or the 911 number?
A lot of that just depends on what you can, you know, that's really a judgment call on your behalf. I mean, if you truly think that this is an emergency, absolutely call that the 911. That's what it's there for. It will definitely get you an immediate response. If you're not quite as sure, you can call that non-emergency number, 587-3555, and then it's an automated system. When it picks up, you can just press option 1 to speak with our dispatchers. Continuing again though about, you know, just calling us whenever you see something suspicious. That can be, you know, some of these may have been a situation to where, you know, it could have been prevented. If you see someone that's, you know, you know better than anyone else who belongs in your neighborhood, who does not. You know, you're there every day. If you see someone that's acting suspicious, you know, like that, please by all means contact us. We will be happy to come out, check out what this person's doing. You know, we're going to be, you know, polite and professional to this person, and if we find that they're up to no good, we'll still continue to be polite and professional, but we will give them other accommodations.
I have a question regarding that. In our neighborhood, one of, because I live in Wilson Park area, there was one of that happened. But we also we're right on the edge of campus, and so we have a lot of university students who have friends come and go pretty frequently. And I know that there were some neighbors that felt like any kind of traffic was suspicious activity. But when you've got college kids, that's not necessarily. Can you help us maybe clarify the what type of things we would look for differently?
Well, I mean, if you see someone that is, going around to, house, maybe going house to house to house, they may be, a lot of times specifically on our daytime burglaries, where no one is home, what they will do is they'll go up and knock on the door. They may try to pawn themselves off as wrong house, whatever the case might be, and they may just be trying houses until they find one that no one answers the door. Then they will make entry off of the side room. If you see someone that is, perhaps going door to door to door, and doesn't, seem to be like a solicitor or trying to sell Girl Scout cookies, whatever the case may be.
Or your neighborhood organizer.
Yeah, exactly. But if it's something that you don't recognize this person, and the best thing I can tell you to do is trust your gut instincts. Usually they're usually pretty dead on. If you see someone that is perhaps, maybe peeking over fences, looking around houses, they're not obviously with the utility company. Most of your utility companies are going to be, whether it's Source Gas, Cox Cable, whatever, they're going to be clearly marked. They're going to have a truck usually somewhere in the area. Just be looking for those things. And if you don't see those things, that's whenever maybe the red flags start flying up. You might want to pay attention. You are in a very unique situation in the fact that you have a lot of foot traffic. You have, the trail system. That creates a lot of pedestrian generators. So you may have, a lot more foot traffic than normal. If you're in a more remote neighborhood, it's probably going to stand out a little bit more. But just be aware. And the best thing I can tell you to do is, we've gotten away from it, but get to know who your neighbors are. And especially with the University of Arkansas here, we have a lot of what I consider transitional housing, which is of, apartment complexes, high, things like that, where people don't know, you have a constant turnover rate of who's moving in, who's moving out. But just if you're in an established neighborhood, I highly recommend to get to know who your neighbors are and just be paying attention.
Of the recent sort of high-profile cases, I'm only aware of two, and that's the very high-profile case with the woman that had.
Right.
Okay, and then the other one was in the historic district. And I understood from reading the paper that the one in the historic district was drug-related, but it's news to me that the other one was also.
That one actually, again, that's the one I said I made the exception.
Oh, okay.
Because it actually occurred in Washington County's jurisdiction. We just kind of got residual on whatever.
Are there others that, aside from those two high-profile, is there others that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, they've, and I'm sure my esteemed colleague here in the media can probably attest to that. There have been, anytime something like that happens,
In the
it
last,
becomes.
let's say, 3 or 4 months, there are others than those two? Okay.
Yeah. If you watch the news, again, it doesn't, as the chairman here, he was able to just do a quick search and pulled out about 4 or 5 just in the past few months. And like I say, we've, at least over the past 3 years, I'm looking
Richard,
20 plus.
Well, I'm kind of quirky in that I have a curse. I look at a page of text and I'll see a phrase. And so I started noticing that phrase. And I just was tracking that just to see if that was a new phrase in the parlance or if it was, but it made me curious to know exactly what that means.
Well, and again, are you talking about the term home invasion?
Yeah.
And it's just it's not necessarily a criminal charge. It's just the best way that we have used to describe it, for the fact that if you were to use the official criminal charge, it would be aggravated residential burglary, which again can be doesn't necessarily convey the instances of the crime.
Well, that's a perfectly good term, and I just noticed it, and it prompted me to
And
see if we could.
it's one of those. I guess it's kind of like the catchphrase of we went from calling people suspects to persons of interest. I wish I coined the phrase myself. Charge a nickel for every time someone uses it, but again, that's just has become the latest kind of catchphrase, buzzword. Again, I don't know how it morphed into that, but that's just the term that we use, and there have been several of those style of robberies. And we typically, whenever you use the term robbery, someone thinks they either gas station, bank robbery, and so home robbery just apparently didn't catch on, so they chose home invasion robbery.
But mugging would be a form of robbery also.
I'm sorry, what?
A mugging.
Yes, that would
robbery.
Yes, that would constitute.
How about burglaries numbers and reported so far
Now, our burglary numbers is something that we see a lot of, and sad to say, a lot of those can be prevented. If we have a real Achilles tendon here in Fayetteville, it is our property crimes, which is not necessarily crimes, against a person, but crimes against property, where homes are broken into, cars are broken into. And when I say some of them could be prevented, it's locking doors, making sure garage doors are shut, and just, there are some very simple things that you can do to prevent those. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, but there are preventable. With your burglaries, some of the things that you can do. There's it's called crime prevention through environmental design. It's the big fancy word. We refer to it as CPTED in the police department. But there are certain things that you can do just to make it's all about target hardening and making you less likely of a victim of a crime. Because I will tell you now, criminals are pretty much lazy by nature. If they were too interested in working, they would go out and get a real job. And when I say that, they will usually take the path of least resistance. A lot of their crimes are crimes of opportunity. They may not have started out with the intentions of breaking into something, but they walk past something, they see that opportunity, they're going to take it. Whether that's a garage door open, in the late night hours, they may see something in there that they want. And if you make your home more of a harder target for them, they're just going to go down the road and find one that is a little bit easier pickings. Same thing with break-ins to vehicles. I am our support specialist down in criminal investigation division. He and I are somewhat of a little kind of part-time crime analysts, and we were just looking at some preliminary numbers. And if I could convince everyone in Fayetteville to lock their doors, I could cut my property crime in half, because a conservative estimate is 80% of our break-into vehicles occur on unlocked vehicles. Of just people going down through there, trying doors, and then they, if you lock your car, they're going to go down the street and find one that's unlocked. If your car is locked, remove all the valuables out of it that are in plain sight. If you leave an iPod, purse, cell phone, whatever the case in there, it may be something that they may be willing to take that risk of breaking out the window, but if they look in it, they don't see anything they want, it's locked, they're going to go down the street and find something else. Same thing is true on your burglaries. Again, if you take just a few little precautions, whether it's, don't give them the opportunity to do something. If on a burglary, if you have a bush or a shrub that's by a window, make sure that you have that trimmed to an adequate height so it does not allow someone to hide behind it.
Let me say one thing about that. If it's the right kind of bush,
Oh yeah,
nobody can get
exactly.
in there. So
Out in the desert country in New Mexico and Arizona, they have a unique way to it. If they don't want somebody there, they plant a cactus there. You can do the same thing here. We just may have to use a thorn bush or like a holly bush or something like that just allows you a little extra.
Rose bushes.
And
Well,
just,
I was thinking about an old-fashioned glass storm door.
Mhm.
Okay, pretty flimsy, just some aluminum and glass. However, if you put a couple of hook locks on it, where it's secured up tight, which is good environment as well, and those are latched, the person's gonna have to break the glass. And they're gonna have to fight their way through that, and with any kind of luck, they'll bleed out before they get through. But I mean, the point being, I might kid around, but the point being, it doesn't have to be complicated or super strong
No.
in order to turn their head.
a very simple method to really secure up your home is in your, have what we call a deadbolt with a 1-inch locking throw. And that means when that deadbolt goes all the way out, it locks. Make sure that you have the space where the deadbolt goes into is deep enough that it'll lock. If you don't, you can just very easily defeat it. Another great one is where the latch plate, most of the latch plates when you buy a deadbolt come with these 1/2-inch screws. What I recommend is getting a 3-inch or longer screw, putting that in the deadbolt latch, because that gets into that 2x4 stud. So if you're having to trap someone's trying to kick in that door, they're going to have to work a little harder, because you have the 1/2-inch screw, it breaks the facing, you're in no time flat. You got to break through a 2x4 or break the bolt itself. That takes a few more kicks. You don't believe me? Ask some of the guys on my SWAT team; they'll tell you the same thing.
So you got these different categories. The opportunist who gets in the window that didn't get shuttered, and somebody had their computer right by the window. It's a typical thing
Yeah.
people do.
And that
I don't know
happens.
why. Then there's the
The person that has the intent.
come around back in the back door after dark, that sort of thing. Maybe they're cold.
Right.
Is there a seasonal feel to this as well?
I would have thought so, up until the most recent one that happened over off of Spring Street. I would have thought it was typically, you know, we seem to think of them as warmer weather, but that is not the case. I started looking at some of the numbers, they were happening anywhere. The most recent one that happened on Spring, I remember because I was extremely cold out there at the scene.
I did notice one that was in the news recently. It's someone, I believe an off-duty officer, noticed someone trying windows, and then they got access, and their story was they were trying to get in to get one.
And that can be the case as well. You know, it's, you know, we have seen some instances where people may be trying to get in and out of the cold, where they may be in a transitional, you know, housing. They may not have housing of their own. Typically, those seem to be targeting mainly abandoned houses or ones that they think are abandoned. And with those, you know, we may find someone that is, you know, maybe it's a home under construction or something like that, and we have seen those before. But with most of the, you know, again, we go back to the term home invasion style robbery, those are the people who have an intent to go there and to take money, drugs, or money from drugs, whatever the case may be. And on that one, you know, be very, very cautious. You know, first off, you know, I would highly recommend that, you know, don't sell drugs at your house because bad things can happen. But the along the same lines, those are very specifically targeted. Be very cautious about what you advertise to people, that what may be in your house, whether it's, you know, if they, you know, again, we fortunately to this point haven't had what I consider a random home invasion of where they just pick somebody and just decided to bust in a door what might be there. We have not seen those yet, and I'm hoping that we continue that trend up. But also, you know,
Empty boxes out by the curb.
exactly, especially around, you know, and that goes back to even with your residential burglaries. Don't advertise what you've got there. If you know, if you get a new TV set, make sure that, you know, I wouldn't exactly set that out on the curb for collection, because now you're advertising to someone that you have this. Same thing for, you know, be cautious about who, you know, whenever you have someone in your home, what information that they see. If they know that you have a lot of weapons in the home, you know, a lot of people have guns, and we see a lot of cases where houses may be targeted for weapons that they thought were inside the house. Again, be very cautious about who you advertise that to. Another one with this day and age is that a lot of people don't think of as your social media. You know, your Facebook, your Twitter, and all that. People will advertise that, yeah, I'm going out of town, we're going on vacation, going skiing for 2 weeks. Unfortunately, you've just advertised to all of your friends and people who think are your friends that you're going to be gone for an extended period of time, and now you have left me a sweet opportunity to come, and now I can take my time. I don't have to worry about being in and out because I know you're not here. So again, it used to be the, you know, in the old days it was stop your newspaper, stop your mail. That's still a good thing, but now it's watch what information you put out on your social media sites and advertise, because people will take advantage of that as well.
Well, that goes along, the thing about the box goes along with our recycling talks we've had. If you go ahead and break down the box and
Absolutely.
make it invisible, and let it go out to the
Exactly.
Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever your day is, you don't have that problem. But yeah, a lot of us are careless about all of those things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
It's don't think of them.
It's very easy whenever, you know, you can go to your local shopping center, and it's just as you're walking down a row of cars. Again, being a police officer for 18 years now, I just automatically start looking. Purse in that one, keys left in the ignition on that one, and I mean, and it doesn't take long to find, and it's.
Interesting that you say weapons in the home. To me, interesting that it's a draw instead of, you know.
Well, there was a robbery in Springdale a week ago where they got 30 or 40.
Yeah, they targeted a. Did you have a question, sir?
Yes, I did. In my neighborhood, I've noticed more and more people walking the sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
And in some of my dealings, I've noticed a lot of homeless people.
Mhm.
Are you seeing more home invasions through homeless people?
Not really. I can't say that we have seen any kind of a trend towards that. In fact, with all the home invasions that I did my research on before I came here, there was not one that was listed the suspect as having homeless as their residents. I'm not seeing that. Again, now we have seen some where they may be breaking into an abandoned structure or home under construction or something like that, but not typically in the home invasion style robberies where force is used.
Okay.
What about the, you said most of the ones have been looking for marijuana, or they knew somebody sold it there,
Right.
so they were gonna steal some. And you mentioned one on cocaine. Now, we've thought for the last several years that methamphetamine was a major drug, so how is it related to home invasion?
We haven't really typically seen that many with the methamphetamine. Again, it may be for the fact that it's just easier for production, and most of the time, whenever you're talking about methamphetamine, you're dealing with I wouldn't say small amounts, but it's used up a lot quicker and it's a little easier to make, unfortunately. Where you're seeing a lot of your marijuana is you may have some of it, typically in your meth, you're looking at just having a little bit there for a few days, then you go get some more. Marijuana may be a little bit more substantial to them, or where they've known that larger quantities are there or cash is there from the sale of marijuana.
Well, what variety of crimes do you relate most to the methamphetamine trade?
Well, I mean, you typically see a lot of, we're seeing a lot of crimes with the methamphetamine. It could be, thefts of where they, I know a lot of, we're having a real problem with like copper thefts and precious metals where people will go to a house under construction business and will rip out the copper to sell so they can get money for their methamphetamine happen. That's what we're seeing, a lot of property crimes off of that, but we haven't seen a whole lot of home invasion style robberies or anything like that off of it. It's mainly what we consider the property crimes. We have had some dealings with, where they, not to say that these people can't be violent because they absolutely can, but it's typically more, the violence is associated to people they know, and it's not necessarily while they're committing a crime, or trying to break in someplace or something like that, but they can be violent, just a different style of violence towards that.
So many people that drive out of your neighborhood, or you see them on major streets sometimes, and just hope you get out of the way. They're speeding suddenly out of an area, and you wonder what they've done. And you can't catch them. It's too dark for your camera and so forth. But or identify people a lot of times. But when you do catch someone like that, would you give us examples of what they've been up to? Have you discovered crime by catching somebody? And sometimes I see the police chasing somebody, but they're just a few blocks behind. We don't even know if they caught them.
And in some cases like that, it could be, I mean, it's such a wide variety of what we see. It could have been, someone who was, most recently what pops into mind, we had some people who were in an area, an officer noticed them, they took off quickly, we got behind them and stopped them, they'd been stealing copper out of a home under construction. They may have been breaking into vehicles. Typically, during the late night hours, if you see unless it's your paper carrier that you know who it is, you see a car creeping through a neighborhood in the late night hours, we're usually pretty, that's a clue. So, it always kind of makes us wonder what they're up to. So again, that's typically what we're seeing. I mean, but it could be a wide variety of things. But anytime that I would be driving around through there, see a car speeding, kind of quickly trying to leave the neighborhood, it would grab my attention, and I would go see what they were up to.
Well, I've been guilty of things like seeing a car creeping through with no lights and put my lights on them.
Oh, absolutely.
Some of your guys
And a lot of times,
investigate,
And with that, a lot of times people, your average criminal does not want attention. If they know that someone is up, if they see a light come on outside, they're going to leave because they know something's up. And if you can get the best description that you can and just call it in to the police department, it may be a suspicious vehicle, but if you can get a tag number, description, and we go over there and find where half a dozen cars have been broken into, that helps us out. It definitely helps us out because it gets us started on the investigation a little bit sooner. We have a suspect that we can, maybe track down some leads on. And a lot of times when we will catch someone who has been breaking into cars, we're able to tie them back to a whole string of robberies or string of break-ins. The other thing that I would recommend too that we don't see as much of that I would like is if you have been a victim of a crime, to make sure that you report that. The reason is because there have been too many instances where we will recover property, but we don't have a report to go with it, where somebody's like, well, it was just, just a couple of, it was an old broke eye camera or whatever it was anyway, but we can attach more crimes to that person and hopefully get some property back, or at least restitution if they broke a window. But to document that, you can do it. You can either have an officer come to the scene, you can do it over the phone, you can even do it online now. Again, now there are some crimes that we, if it's crime against person, we will come out and investigate that. But if it's a simple property crime, you don't have any suspects, there's no physical evidence, you can report that over the phone or even over online through accessfayetteville.com.
So many people have these excellent phones with a camera. And if they think to snap that shot of that license plate.
Oh, picture's worth a
and
thousand
then
words.
call,
Mhm.
they can really
Even if it's
set your head on.
exactly, and it may be nothing at the time. You can just take a quick picture of the license plate, and if you find out something happened later, feel free to give that to your the officer that you see, and we would love to have that information.
I'm surprised there've been. I suppose it's happening that people are hit by a driver who leaves the scene,
Right.
and the ones that think, oh, get his license plate this way, instead of trying to memorize it,
Oh,
which
absolutely.
most of us can't do. Just
Well, I'm horrible with
That's a tough
numbers.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, anytime.
Do we have any more questions? We appreciate that.
Oh, anytime. Do y'all want to hang around, or I'm sure y'all have business conduct?
Well, you're welcome to stick around. We've got,
Hang around, represent your neighborhood.
we've got some,
Valley View subdivision, West Fork, Arkansas.
we've got some folks here who probably got something to discuss, and, let's see, start with Craig here. Craig Crocker from Jennings Plus neighborhood, lives across the street from me.
Yeah, Richard, I don't really have anything to add on the neighborhood, but you did give me a task some time ago that I wanted to report back on. It's all good. You want to go into the details, but I can just tell you bottom line,
Sure.
it's all good.
I can't remember what it was. What were we
okay.
talking about?
You wanted to do some quality assurance checking on the video.
Oh, yeah, I was trying to understand who watches these videos.
Yeah, well, that I can't tell you, but I can tell you that they're worthwhile.
I was
Aren't you
curious
curious?
about the sound quality and,
Yeah, as I did notice that,
no offense.
surprise, surprise, if someone is not speaking into a microphone, turns out you can't hear them.
Are you speaking?
Yeah, this would be fine. I just remember watching someone who wasn't even close to a microphone, and of course you couldn't hear them. But other than that, it's all good.
Yeah, the thing I'm interested in is who is our watchership? Who watches these? And please come see us. If you watch these, come see us. Tell us about it. It's on your mind.
And represent your
In the
neighborhood.
meeting. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Mike, what do you got going on over?
Well, I actually have a list of 10 items,
Sweet.
but I'll be brief. I mentioned the homeless people a while ago. The other morning, as I was heading out, I saw, I believe, 7 people walking in the rain in their tennis shoes and heavy coats. They were walking in front of Pinnacle Foods. And I assumed they were a homeless bunch because I couldn't feature walking in the rain, Some of them didn't have hats even. And I thought that was awful. The second thing I was going to mention is I have gone to Wiggins Church on Saturday and watched them feed the homeless people. Wiggins has a great group down there. I might mention Sherry Frazee, who runs the thing, and Reverend Gary Lunsford, the pastor of the church, Wiggins, who I think deserve a medal. I really do. But I saw, again, about 150 people being fed there. Anyway, it makes me think that our homeless community is growing. I noticed that we have, 70,000 people in town and 23,000 students. And I believe our homeless people are keeping pace with that. Anyway, I wish there was something that could be done for the homeless, but for the life of me, I don't know what it would be. I'm an old retired fellow, and I feel sort of helpless as to doing anything. But if there's anybody out there in the audience that has a good suggestion, be sure and let us know.
If I could just chime in there, there is some organizations that are out there. The Northwest Arkansas Housing Coalition, they do, quite a bit work with the homeless and a lot of programs that they can offer. That's always an option. They do participate every 2 years in a census that is put on. Dr. Fitzpatrick over at the University of Arkansas, he conducts a homeless census every 2 years. I believe I don't think it's this year, but I believe the following year will be the next one. They typically do that in January in the winter months because that way they can hit the shelters and even they have us go out and help us find some of the folks that may be camping out in the woods to try to do that. But there are, if you're looking for something to plug into, that would be where I would start, would be with the Northwest Arkansas Housing Coalition and just see what services that you might be able to plug into or might be able to offer.
If I may interject, I won't forget if I don't tell you right now, but somebody else may have read the story. It's been online, it's been in the newspapers, and it was about Seattle or another of the cities in Washington or Oregon, and I'm not sure. But anyway, their city council authorized the churches to set up tent cities. In other words, up to 100 tents on their property for the homeless permanently, if they chose to do it and take care of it. And this is something that, right now you can't legally, I think, let your friend or your kid put up a tent in your yard in Fayetteville. But this was a wonderful thing, and I don't know how many churches are taking advantage of it, but this was announced just 2-3 months ago, maybe, that I first saw the story, and it was a news story about that. And, with the government in recent years depending more on, they use the term faith-based help for social needs. And that sounds like a wonderful way to, without any city or state subsidy, to let churches do something that many of them would want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And not all churches have enough space, but if you go around and look, some of them have big wasted space lots. And so that's just one thing, Mike, it's possible. Besides providing some shelter in the worst weather,
Yes.
I think more of us could find a way to do in our organizations, if it's a church or some other group that has a building. So go ahead, sir.
Well, anyway, get off on a different subject here. I read in the paper about a apartment complex that's proposed for 555 Maple and another one on Lafayette Street, just down from there. Anyway, I motored over there and parked my scooter and watched. The traffic jam there at that intersection at 555 Maple was awful. It wasn't even the rush hour, It was awful. I noticed, along with this, extreme traffic jams at 540 and Martin Luther King. Terrible traffic jams. With our expanding population and student population, I think it's only going to get worse. Again, I don't have any idea what to do about it, but it's a neighborhood concern, and I do worry about it. Now, again, something a newspaper might be interested in, maybe. I passed by the Crown Apartments the other day, and out there in the rain, waiting for the bus, was at least 30 students. What I'd like to see the Crown Apartments do, or other apartments also, is maybe put up a covered place for the bus stop. It would be an easy thing for them to do and keeping people from getting drowned in the rain. Anyway, that concludes my comments.
You said you had 10.
That's only 4, Mike.
No, I combined a couple of them. Oh, I have one more. Things I would love to see. Down there at Walker Park, there's lots of room. I would like to see a Greek theater or a theater in the round, which would not be at all hard to do, and the property's there. And there's plenty of room for parking. And it'd be a beautiful addition for the south side of Fayetteville. Anyway, with that, I'll conclude. That's about all I had to say.
All right, that's good to get.
Excellent.
Let's see, let's check our agendas, everybody. New business items. So is that, Julie, these were new business items, weren't they?
That was just if anybody had any new business items to add, or to bring up.
I've heard the suggestions that possibly it would be sensible for us as a committee, council, to get a project, an idea for a project. So I'd toss that out to all of our members who are here, some ideas for a project, something we can work on together.
Did you have a project in mind?
Oh, I'm not gonna suggest anything right off. Let it germinate a while. See, think of any things we'd be interested in committing to as a project to work on together.
Well, I would suggest that we remember that it's been a year since we discussed Beauty Mark seriously and understanding
Discussed what, sir?
the Beauty Mark Award we used to give.
Oh, okay.
Haven't given one in more than 2 years, I think, for a business or individual place that had something special in the city. And I believe the lady who was vice president and was in charge of that committee
JP.
may be back in town. I saw her listed as
Okay.
JP Peters giving an award, giving a presentation coming up soon, so.
Can you recall what
Maybe-
the last one was that was awarded?
No, I'm not sure what it was. I can remember.
I believe it was was it Teptai restaurant?
Teptai got one, is that right?
I believe that
Maybe.
was the last one that was
That one
awarded.
on South School.
And
All
it's
improvements.
probably been 2 years now.
Yeah, they still have a garden and both flowers and vegetables around their place. And the garden flowers are just about as beautiful as anything else that grows in nature.
Well, there's something for us to think about and keep conscious of as we're moving around the city. Help me out here, Julie. Did the testimony we've had so far consist of neighborhood updates? I think so.
I think kind of started neighborhood updates. I don't know if anybody hasn't.
Aubrey, have you updated your neighborhood adequately?
I do it so much online that I will update everybody on the status of the old Washington County livestock auction site. It's been cleared. Includes some big old beautiful trees in what is wetland, and is so close to being within the 50-foot stream protection ordinance rules that I can't imagine those people had to do it, but they're going to have parking spaces and all the way down to the stream, and of course the city trail would go along the Tanglewood Ranch through there. that's a disappointing thing to veterans and people in my neighborhood who, particularly on Government Avenue and down the streets south of there, will suffer the indignities of dump trucks by the hundreds going in and out the way they do on those major sites. So it's going to be student apartments, 4 stories next to the National Cemetery on the east side. And unfortunately, the veterans are still dying and new ones are being created and killed as we speak in foreign lands. So we're going to need a national cemetery to grow in the future. So I'm very sorry that land has been taken for that. That was the source of a lot of angst in our part of town. And continued flooding. We've still got the possibility of a come-and-go store being built at MLK, and the concern there of particular interest has been that come-and-go would like to have exit and entry from both directions on MLK. And this is something the city planners, I think the police have input into that. The risk of accidents at MLK and Hill Avenue already there's high-speed traffic, and even one of the planning commissioners spoke about witnessing 70-mile-an-hour traffic coming through that intersection at various times. So that's one of the bottlenecks during raceback events.
I don't go there on my scooter.
Well, I don't blame you.
Yes, not me.
That come and go that they put in a township is a nightmare.
That's what we've been told. So the current status of that project, for those who haven't watched city council meetings recently, is that they're going to draw up a plan to have median blocking things in the street on MLK that would facilitate in and out, right and left, to go either direction from there. And that plan will be submitted to the state highway department for evaluation after it's done. So it may be another few months before that deal is made final, but it is something that people who use the street would want to think about and comment next time it comes up to the city council. Or maybe even have the developers come here and discuss how they're thinking of completing this thing to make it a safe entry and also meet their needs for their business. They want every access possible. And so that's one we can look at. People in every neighborhood that may use that street. So that's not me.
Thanks, Aubrey. Let's hope you'll come when we have the contractors here too, so you can ask them the right questions, the important ones. Item 5 is agenda items for February 23rd, 2012.
I was contacted by Paula Marinoni, who has an item that she had hoped to be here tonight to possibly bring it up under the new business as a potential discussion item for February. I'm not sure what all the details are. She was out of town, so she wasn't able to be here tonight. But she did want me to mention that she had an item, and I believe it has something to do with the occupancy stipulations in the ordinances or in the code. I think most of you are probably familiar with who Paula Marinoni is, and she was a neighborhood representative with the council neighborhood for years. So that's just one possible agenda item for February. I told her I'd bring it up.
This is residential occupancy?
I believe so.
So this is like the number of people that you can have living in a house?
I believe so, yeah. I believe
Yeah.
that is what it is.
It's pretty much driven by a definition that's in the glossary that you can find online of family.
This is the unrelated adult thing?
I think it's related to that, but I'm not positive.
3 unrelated adults aren't supposed to live in the same.
That is what the existing ordinance says. I don't know if what she wanted to talk about was related to enforcing that, or if it was to modifying, or what. I'm not sure.
Well, I think probably part of our function here is to have a place where you can go and check on something, providing the access to the video on demand, and come look at the agenda item and come there and see what, well, we've got one on this tape, pretty good discussion about home invasions and other issues that are satellites of that. So that'd be a mighty fine discussion to have.
Okay.
Whoever could come and join us, join the conversation, as they say. It's, to me, the function of this forum is for people to come and have their say.
Now, is that, sometimes a police matter would discover that there were a lot of people living in the house, but would code enforcement come to talk to us about that regulation, or police, you think?
It falls up under, code enforcement and, excuse me, the planning division, I believe, and it's kind of a multifaceted. We have had some involvement in it. We assist whenever needed, because a lot of time late night hours checking, it's like, we'll have us drive by and check, see how many people were there, things like that. But that's pretty much the limit of ours. And then if you find a violation, then it would have to go through the prosecutor and whatever the case may be.
It's not like you're gonna rouse people out and say you have to
As far
leave
as-
because you're sleeping on the floor.
Right. As far as what the existing ordinance states, it is covered in the Good Neighbor program that this group worked on. If it's just a matter of reciting or clarifying what is in the existing ordinance, because I've worked with the planning department and with the police department, and especially in putting together this flyer, and I was assigned to planning previously, that this has been an ongoing discussion for the 6 years I've been with the city. So as far as what's in the existing ordinance, I could at least give that information in a discussion. Now, if it comes to like what measures they will take, what is needed for enforcement, then we can get maybe somebody from code or maybe even somebody from the prosecutor's office if you decide to go in that direction. I do know that code compliance staff have said, and planning staff, well, we've said this for 6 years, that this is probably one of the hardest of the neighborhood issue type offenses to prove. It really is one of the hardest to enforce and to prove.
Thank you.
So just a question then about procedure and function. Does this group make recommendations about changes in ordinances or additions to ordinances that they feel are justified? Do they initiate something like that, or do they do it at the request of
I think that there have been discussions in this group that because of the discussions that have happened, it has been brought to the attention of city council members to be on the city council agenda, or to modify ordinances. It has to go through city council, and so either the mayor or one of the other city council members have to put an item on that agenda. There have been items that have been coming up for discussion at city council that have been brought to this group for input before it's at that final stage. So I think this group in the past has acted to either help city council members become aware of an issue, or help them in getting the neighborhood's perspective on an item that they are considering for modification or for adoption.
Okay. Well, if we have people who come and want to pursue this as part of this discussion, then that'll start having a life of its own. That's good. Any other thoughts about next month's meeting? Who you'd like to have as a guest? Who you plan
Well,
on
I'd love
bringing?
to, I would love to see the beauty park discussed and Paula's issue brought up, if we may.
I I've also visited a little bit with code enforcement, and they're not ready to talk to us yet because one of the big issues is vegetation, and they're afraid there's going to be snow on the ground. The conversation's too early for it. So hopefully the month after March would be the time for that.
I do have another suggestion based on my interaction with different groups within the community, that different community health initiatives.
Health?
There are certain things that I know a lot of our neighborhood representatives maybe are beyond this stage, but like the school district has been offering free healthy cooking classes. They have a chef on staff who's their nutritionist. The mayor started his trail tours last year. Community health, and especially combating obesity in the early ages, but at all stages of life, is becoming extremely important. And Arkansas is not one of the healthiest states in the world, or healthiest states in the nation. So that could be a topic of discussion at some point.
Would we want to collect that around someone who presents?
I could have somebody through the, if you wanted to know what the school district's doing, the coordinated school health is a board that they have, and they have staff, their school board members, they have parents, they have students and community members all on this board that make different decisions and recommendations. And they've also been involved in some of the discussions as far as opening some school facilities, like tracks and things like that, to the community members or the neighborhood members to use. So that is a possibility.
All of its own. Might be enough
Could be.
to have a meeting dedicated to that. But would you be interested in sounding some folks out and seeing
Absolutely.
what they would like to do? It sounds like a great idea.
Okay.
Great idea. Wait, Aubrey, announcements. It's item 6 on the agenda, announcements. Before you go.
Yeah, see,
You can't leave.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second that we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None are opposed. So the motion passes. We are adjourned. Thanks.